Diane, we are absolutely honoured to have you as one of the ambassadors, the brand ambassadors of the Governance Institute of Australia. I was wondering if I might leave it to you to introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you so much, Megan. And I am delighted to be a brand ambassador for the Governance Institute of Australia. So I am a Perth-based independent non-executive director. I've been here on the lands of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and let me pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. So I've been here for just over a decade now. Before that, I spent almost 25 years out of Perth, over east, as we like to say, here in Western Australia. But I lived and worked in Asia, in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, and then in the United States. So my portfolio is quite diverse, and I have designed it that way. I'm a board member of a couple of large listed Australian companies, but I also chair a government body, sit on the board of a state government agency, have pretty substantive pro bono activity around education and economics, and am a board member of a mutual organisation. So quite a lot of diversity there. I played a lot of sport in my younger days, and so I have done things in sport as well with Basketball Australia, because basketball was my sport. And now I'm a little involved tangentially with the anti-doping movement.
Wonderful. What are some of the skills that you think are absolutely critical? And maybe separate that out if need be. What are some of the skills that you really need to hone in, for example, the listed space versus the NFP space?
I think the skills that you bring to a board can be thought about in a couple of ways. You know, there's obviously some foundational skills. You really do need to be able to understand governance, and you need to be able to read a profit and loss, or statement of comprehensive income, and a balance sheet, or
we all still call them the P&L.
The P&L and the balance sheet, but you do need to have, you know, enough comfort with that to be able to steward the financial affairs of the organisation that you're dealing with. But I think every director needs to have an ability to be forensic. If you're not curious and you don't find it interesting to ask questions and look into the reasons behind things in a forensic way, you're going to find it pretty hard to be a director. I think you also need to be able to frame questions really well, but it's not just about asking questions elegantly, it's the intent behind that. And that's, I think, where some of the analytic comes in. So you need to be able to understand what it is the company is doing, the business models, you know, how it's operating, and have a perspective. Having a perspective, the thing that Siobhan McKenna was always banging on about, which is a bit of a McKinsey thing as well, and she and I both shared McKinsey in our past, is super important for a director. And you do need to have the ability to be collegial. One of the other things that I think is a thing you need to think about in terms of, are my skills relevant for this particular opportunity, is what diversity do you actually bring to the board? Because a couple of times I've had you know, a search consultant will call me and say, oh, there's a seat coming up on such and such a board, you'd be perfect. And I think I could make a contribution there, and it's something I could be interested in. But I look around the table and I say, but didn't you just put so-and-so on that board 2 years ago? So they've got a lot of runway there, and they're very similar to me. You know, maybe they had a consulting background, or maybe they're somebody, you know, who had the sort of international exposures I've had, or maybe they're a person who's, you know, in that op risk type framework that I come from. I said, well, what am I going to add to this board? Oh, you'd be great. That's not the question. It's what am I going to add to this board? So skills and merit are always contextual, but never more so when you're thinking about a board. And so I say to people when they ask me, how do I get that elusive first board, or how do I, you know, look at expanding my portfolio? And I say, well, let me have a look at your CV. And they give me a beautiful summary in reverse chronological order of their career. And it's lovely. And I say, yeah, but this doesn't tell me why you'd be a great director for company X that you're aspiring to join. where's the synthesis of all of the things that you've done, your skills and experience, that tells me as the chairman what it is you would bring and what would make you different to the great raft of directors I've already got? Because you know yourself better than anybody else. You know the things you've done, the skills that you've built, the experiences you've had better than anybody else. So you are best equipped to synthesize that experience. So how do you synthesize it in a meaningful way? Well, you've got to understand the company. Yeah. You know, you do have to do the work. You've got to read the last 3 annual reports. You've got to go on the websites and listen to the last couple of analysts' briefings. You've got to go through the website, understand the strategy, understand the risks. You know, if that floated not so long ago, you beauty, there's a prospectus. Read that thing, understand it, and then match what you see from there to what you've got to offer. The beauty of that is, well, it's risky. You better get this right. But the beauty of it is that's your due diligence at the same time.
Exactly. And CV curation for jobs is something that everyone needs to do for every job, directors included.
Yeah, that's right. Because when you start to write your CV in that way and think about the companies that you could make a contribution to, it drives you very much towards education that you might need in the future, and it drives you towards who to network with. Because networking is only useful if you're networking with the right people.
Indeed. Great advice once again.